Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, talking about all things in tech. Frank, episode 440. That's a lot of episodes.
It's way too many episodes. I feel bad if you ever want to go into the back catalog, everyone. Maybe there's a good random feature in your app. Episode 440, but that also has special meaning. We've been a little bit bad about it, I think, in the past, but on these decade episodes, we like to do lightning rounds. We just talk about a whole bunch of tech stuff, right? It's just kind of fun.
Yes, if you're brand new to watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/@mergeconflictfm, which a lot of people did watch the last episode, which was our 1 month with the M4 Mac Mini. And I believe it was because I accidentally set the date incorrect on our podcast host for releasing the episode. So that one went out late, but I backdated it. So full all y'all, that makes it look like it actually was that. Ooh. Which, by the way, Microsoft put out its first post on Blue Sky, and they used the Blue Sky API to backdate the post to April 4th, 1975, which was the date that Microsoft was founded, which is super cute.
Cute. I didn't know about that. Yeah. I don't like that you can just backdate things. API should not support that in a syndication system.
It does have like a warning though. So it says like, hey, just so you know, this thing may not be, we can't validate this date. So anyways. So yes, if you're following us, watching us, make sure you subscribe. We appreciate everyone subscribing on the channel. We love reading the comments on the YouTubes. And if you're new, hit that subscribe or follow button if you are on a podcast app of some type. Super appreciate it. Your support helps this podcast keep going. And yeah, Frank's right. Every 10 episodes, there's a bunch of stuff we don't get to, or like kind of topics that are like, is that 30 minutes, 40 minutes? No, probably not. So we try to do what? 6 and 5 minutes each, 30 minutes. You want to do it, Frank?
Yeah, we used to be pretty strict about the 6. I think we can do it. I think we got it in us. I want to open up. I've been learning some new APIs, James. We don't, I try to keep up with Apple and iOS as best I can, but they're always releasing new APIs. I don't always get to put them into my apps. And a lot of times their new APIs don't really fit into my apps and things like that. So there's a feature that we got somewhere back in 16, 17, iOS 16, 17, but I never took advantage of. I know we haven't talked about it on the show.
No.
James, do you know what the heck a live activity is?
Dude, they're my favorite. They were introduced with the island, island life. Digital dancing dynamic island. That is what happened. Yeah. No, it's really cool because they work on all devices. I don't have an island. I'm still on a connected island. I believe that's just like a landmass. It's like I'm connected to. No, I have a continent. I'm a continent up there hanging out. And it's some information that shows you on your lock screen and or your digital dancing island.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I just didn't pay attention to the Apple talks because I kind of just assumed, and I noticed this, apps sometimes put their little icons up there. And I was always wondering, what does it take to get my app's little icon up there? And I always thought it was limited to navigation apps and music apps, especially if you write like a music or audio app and you do all the APIs, you just kind of get thrown into there for free. It's all just done for you. But I realized I was writing a funny little fairy tracking app, something to suit my lifestyle. And I wanted to see if I could put something up there. And it turns out to be easy in classic Apple fashion. Turns out to be both easy and terribly difficult. And I just wanted to put out there, everyone, I do recommend that if your app has some activity, boy, I'm overusing that word, but something that the user will want to kind of monitor in the background, ideally something that has a start time and an end time so they can get very gentle notifications up at the digital island and oddly enough on the lock screen. Yeah. So this is a fun way to kind of get your app onto the lock screen too.
Yeah, because let me describe this really quick if people haven't really experienced, because you do get a pop-up and you might have just said no because everyone says no to pop-ups, but I actually really like the live activities. So for example, you'll see this with Lyft or Uber. But you also see with the Apple Fitness application, which is something we'll talk about in the next topic. But it also will show you a bunch of information about what you're currently doing in real time. And for example, Lyft or Uber will show you how far away your driver is. Like open the app, do a thing, and that's kind of nice because you don't have to have your phone exposed. For example, it's locked under the lock screen, and get some valuable information there. So that type of stuff. It's an activity. It's something that has started, right, and it, like you said, will end at some point. It's an activity. In quotes, I'm going to do some air quotes here. So, anyways, so I'm interested in how this actually plays out because I haven't
Yeah.
looked at any of the APIs or anything.
Well, it is sadly widget kit based. So
Ah,
you are writing basically widgets. It uses the intent system, which honestly, that's another technology I don't take advantage enough of in my own apps. Intents are where you get like Siri integration and shortcuts integration. So you build a little bit of that. You add a widget extension to your executable. Now, widgets do kind of have to be written in Swift, I think, kind of
yep.
these days. So you can add this to any of your apps, but you're going to have to write the little widget in Swift. And trust me, though, it's fine because you can't. You can't put much code in it, so don't worry. It's mostly just the UI layout that you can put into this thing and the data structure that you're going to put into it. So just very quickly, because we're time limited, it's a little bit fun, but you have to build like 6 different UIs, James, for this thing.
Uh,
You have the compact leading, compact trailing, that's 2. You have the minimal UI, you have the expanded UI, and then you have the lock screen UI. So minimum, I think I miscounted, you have to have 5
wow.
different UIs that you build for this puppy. Because they're good little widgets, you have 0 interactivity. You can't just like put a timer in there. You can't put any like logic. You can't do web requests or anything like that. So if you want to update it in real time, you got to write a background process. Always nasty. You can put a button on them. This is new with widgets. You can
Ooh,
put a button on your widget. I'm trying to figure out how to make a Mario game in a widget. Not quite there yet, but um, the buttons though have to speak through intents, which is
ah,
iOS's weird tell an app what to do system. It's the shortcut system
yeah.
basically. So that's the weird thing. You can have buttons, but all they can do is call into intents. But that just I've been a little bit lax in adding intents to all my apps, so it's probably good that I throw a few more in so that my apps are scriptable. Anyway, I really didn't know much about this technology and I kind of love it. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you have any kind of app that's doing any kind of start time, end time, really consider looking into these and adding them. I think it's kind of fun how many places you get to pop your app up throughout the OS.
Yeah, it's super good and super valuable because they can update. And like you said, you can actually update things in nearly real time as well. In fact, if you are doing like fitness applications, like a spin bike, for example, it will pretty much put your time, I think, every second or even have, I don't know, zero
Yeah.
point 0.1 second. It's like really fast. It is updating fast.
They actually have a plist mode you have to set for that. If you want to update quickly, you have to opt in. This is Apple, baby.
I
They're
like
going to
it.
make you declare it. Yeah, it's something called rapid updates or something like that.
Rapid updates.
Alternatively, you can do push notifications or just server pushes to it to send it data. I
Oh,
don't do
nice.
that. I hate running servers, but just write a background task for the other purposes.
Very cool. I need to look into these as well because I think it would be very beneficial. For example, my application, my Cadence, which would be
Woo!
pretty cool to actually like work under the lock screen and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
We talked about this a while ago. This is a feature I also think was added in iOS 16 and Apple Watch. I don't know whatever number, but I didn't have an Apple Watch that could get the latest Apple Watch OS. Because I was on Series 3. However, some of our listeners may know that my Series 3 officially died. The touchscreen stopped working. It had a big gaping hole in it for the many years for my bike accident. But one day I woke up, went out on a walk, and it totally decided to actually stop working. And if you don't have the touchscreen, guess what? Your watch is useless.
it's a dumb watch. It's
Yeah,
a it's a hunk of glass that's strapped to your wrist.
you can't even unlock it. So yeah, I
Right.
guess you could try to unlock it through your phone. Maybe I don't know. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I went and got a new watch, a Series or SE2, because it's on sale at Best Buy. Yeah, the SE2, the 2024 edition. Apparently, there was two
2024. Okay.
SE2s. Yeah, 2024
I
edition.
wasn't
So
sure
new.
how old that was. Sorry.
Yeah, it has the hand washing mode. It has a few other things. It doesn't have like all the sensors, but I am now officially washing all my hands for 20 seconds, which is good because Apple says good work.
Huh. I I wonder, does my watch not support that, or
You have to
I
turn it
haven't been
on.
yelled at.
You
I
got to turn it
probably
on.
I probably did not turn that on.
Yeah, it's off by default,
I
which is
forgot
good.
all about that feature. Oh, what about all the COVID features?
Yeah, it's really good. So, okay, so Apple introduced a feature for Apple Fitness that they mentioned at WWDC in one of the keynotes, which is the ability to connect your Apple Watch to different sensors. And specifically, they added the capabilities to connect to cadence and speed sensors. So when you are doing a fitness, a ride inside or outside, you can get that information inside of the application and on your watch. Now, Frank, there is no information on the internet on how to actually do this. Like it's like buried in
I
weird
believe you.
documentation. It's like, and I was like, oh yeah, I have this. I got on my bike and I was like, can't I do this thing that like I
Yeah.
no longer need to use my app, right? Which seems like
Cook
something I
told
wouldn't
me
want
I
to.
could see a
Tim,
giant number about how fast I'm pedaling.
yeah, let me see it. So what you actually do, which is really funny, is you pair the sensor to your watch through the Bluetooth settings.
I forget the watch has settings from time to time.
I was like, where? And then it's like on the watch, and I was like, how do I even get there? So you pair the sensor to it, and then I guess somehow, I mean, it probably knows like different information when it's connected. So it knows what, Bluetooth information is coming back. But you just start a ride and it just tries to connect to the device and
Oh,
will just
lovely.
like show up automatically for you. Right. And it's not only
Oh,
on your watch. So when you're looking at your watch and it's doing the workout, the cadence number's on there. If you have a companion device, such as an iPad or an iOS, there is a new mode inside of Apple Fitness
uh,
that basically shows you a bunch of big numbers on a
oh
screen,
boy. Oh boy.
and additionally has a live activity as well. So you now, for
Wow.
example, could have this number on all of your devices in real time because it's connected to the watch and the watch is talking to that device, and that makes it all work perfectly nice and seamless. So Apple sure locked my app,
Yeah.
but they did it really, really good and really integrated. So props off, Apple. I will say it's super awesome. And yeah, I mean, I'll still work on my app, and I need to do some porting and I need to do a bunch of other stuff. But you probably should just use this new thing. I mean, I think mine is nice because I have charts and graphs over time of the cadence. They're not doing that, so my app still has value in general
Mhm.
because you can always add more things that Apple Fitness doesn't do. But you know, they're doing zones with your heart because once if you have the
Yeah.
watch, they got the heart rate, they got the stuff. It's like, oh,
Integration.
it's
Yeah.
integrated, man. It's super nice. So, anyways, they did it. I'm not mad at it, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to use this. It's so good, so good. So, anyway,
Well,
sometimes it's a good
sorry.
thing.
I think it's a rite of passage for every Mac developer to be Sherlocked by Apple. So, if you're not familiar with the term, this is when Apple, the big billion-dollar corporation, writes your app and usually does a slightly better job than you because they pay their engineers really well, and the engineers are very talented people. Not always, though. Not always. Thank goodness Apple is not perfect at all their app development. There's always still room. The See also the very first version of the podcasts app. It was beautiful, but useless. I'm sorry, buddy. It, it's tough because it's that integration trick.
So good.
Like, yeah, the UI, yeah, you can compete on the UI, but if you don't want to add 800 different Bluetooth sensors to your app, it's just hard to compete with what they can do by integrating all the sensors together. Good
Now,
feature, though.
yeah, good feature. Now, the nice thing is that my app does work without an Apple Watch. So that was like that's the
Right.
key, So it's like, oh, Apple's integration requires an Apple Watch. My app does not. So that's kind of like a nice. It's still in the market as far as that, So there is a whole market for. Not everyone owns an Apple Watch, right? So
Yeah. Is it only activity based? So I can't just do this on my iPad? I can't open a fitness app? It's really just watch based, huh?
for this one, yeah, you have to start.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to start. You have to start
Okay.
that specific activity that works for that specific sensor. That
Mhm.
that specific activity and the watch knows about. Like, there's not like a list that I could find
Yeah,
anywhere, like on the
right.
internet of like, okay, what sensors, what this. Apple's like, just
Okay.
connect it. And you're like, okay.
I think
So,
your app definitely still has value then. I think you're only
yeah.
50% Sherlock.
Anyways, their stuff's really good. Okay. We talked last week about our new Mac Mini M4s and kind of 1 month in, what we're thinking about it. And I have a few things, few topics to talk through. But the first one I wanted to talk about, we've gotten a lot of questions about this that we have addressed before. But someone wrote an article, Frank, and it was
Hmm.
basically that the Mac desktop is dead.
Oh.
Uh, yep. So
Oh.
it's dead. See
Oh.
that thing that you're using?
I
It's
thought
dead. Just it's
the light's
died.
still on.
It
Oh,
died. No,
okay.
it's dead. It's dead. Nope, it's completely dead. No, okay. So, well, here was the justification for it, which was, hey, like everyone's raving about the M4, Mac Mini, for good reason, which is super great. It's a nice device, especially the $600 model or whatever, as well, as far as in the expensive models. But you aren't always at your computer, and often you do want a laptop to be moving around with you. So, what they argued was that two parts. One is that the MacBook Pro and the Mac laptops have gotten so good as far as performance, but also so good as far as a dock station mode, which
Oh.
the
Oh,
Mac
really?
the MacBooks in the past were historically terrible about connecting to monitors
Uh-huh.
and doing this other stuff, right? So
Uh-huh.
argument one was like, hey, if you have a dock, you plug it in, it's gotten so good that
Uh-huh.
it's there. The other argument was that Apple's synchronization setup and backup and keeping your device in sync is so bad that it's a nightmare to have two devices. Like basically iCloud
Oh,
and iCloud Sync, and some things are better with like OneDrive and Dropbox and things like that.
yeah.
But as far as like all your settings, all your shortcuts, all your things, like nothing synchronizes back and forth between them
Hmm.
in general. So that
Fascinating.
was their argument was stop buying two Mac devices and just buy one, and it
Wow.
should be a laptop. And you and I, both own two Macs, a MacBook, two. We both own the same exact MacBook Air and the same exact Mac Mini M4. What is happening? This is so weird. How
I
do we
know.
own the same hardware? Doesn't make
I
any
think
sense.
if you talk to each other 440 times, you just share tastes and everything.
That's true. Anyways, I
We haven't
wanted
had
to
enough
get your
conflict.
take. I wanted to get your take. I wanted to get your take.
Um, I want to be generous to the person, but everyone has a different way of computing and living their computing life. I will take exception to some of that sync stuff because there are well known techniques for how to share all that stuff. Apple is a Unix system. You create a remote directory and you do a soft link to it with all your config files in it, and guess what? You all of a sudden have remote links. So I'll I want to be generous, but I'll say they don't sound like a power user, maybe not a dev, because devs have Git. Like, I don't care. I can always git clone any repo on any machine. I can go to my parents' machine and I can start working, So I don't really feel that way. I will say it's tedious to run two different machines. No, and now, okay, I'm also going to take exception to the docs. No, I have a friend who literally just bought the M4 Pro laptop, brought it over, we were playing with it, and we were marveling at how funny a lot of the USB-C adapters can't do HDMI correctly, or they're very
Yeah.
about which HDMIs they're going to do. And okay, you'll run into the same problems with the Mac Mini and all that stuff, but I don't. I think that they're being a little disingenuous in saying cloud syncing is bad, and I don't know what was the other thing is so good that I disagree so much. Plus, it's just more expensive. So if you take our Mac Minis, our M4 Minis, and you spec out a laptop with those same specs, you are going to pay $1,000 more because that screen is not free and that keyboard is not free. They cost
Mhm.
in Apple dollars between $1,000 and $1,200 to get the same spec machine in laptop form. That's a premium. That money can go to other things. Uh, Especially, I think I just want to make the simple joke also. I like to work at a desk. I don't like to work in coffee shops. I don't like to work in libraries. I worked on the ferry. That was a little annoying. I don't like doing that. I like to work at my desk where all my junk is and where the cat is and where I know where the water is. So I don't really need a mobile computer for that. And I don't want a mobile computer for that. I leave my mobile computer in my backpack. So anytime I need a mobile computer, I take my backpack and there goes the mobile computer with it. Um, so I believe this person's coming from a place of honesty, and they probably this all suits them in their life, and good for you. Maybe ditch the desktops, but you can't speak for everyone because I know that we obviously have very different computing lifestyles. Me and this person.
Yeah, I think that it's and there's probably a lot more to the article, but that was the gist of it, in general. But I I could see exactly where they're coming from because yeah, it is totally easier to have just like one device that does
Mm,
everything, which is great. There's tedious stuff to write. Like if you need to update Visual Studio or
yeah.
Xcode, you got to do it twice, right? You got to update your
Mhm.
machines twice. Like you have two machines, you have to update them there. I do think that they had another good argument, which was about the syncing, but also like iCloud app syncing. Like sometimes apps synchronize with iTunes, like iCloud, and then some don't. So like based on the database they uses, because like Mac desktop software is like not exactly there. But again, this is just a OS thing in general, right? So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I use my devices like differently though. Like when I'm at my desk, I am I'm in sort of like power. When I'm on my desk and I'm on my desktop, I'm kind of in power user mode. Like I have the
Mhm.
ultimate setup. I have all the things. My devices that are on the road with me are in like, I call them like developer light mode. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? They really
Mhm.
are like, they're there. The setups are there. But like for example, on my Mac mini desktop, I have like 6 mail accounts like synchronizing, right? On my MacBook, I have like one, for example, right? Because there's just certain things that I'm like, oh, it's not worth me setting up all these accounts
Right.
and synchronizing all this stuff to all my devices. I'm only going to get what I need because most of it will be on my phone. Like the other part too is like I'm going to have way more things installed, way more things happening on my desktop because if I'm on the road with my MacBook Air, for example, I have my phone with me, right? Now, granted, I have it when I'm sitting at home, but like if I needed to get to the mail, it's there. The
Yeah.
idea when I'm on my desktop is for me not to touch my phone. You know what I mean? Like that is the goal of it, which is like the reason I bought the Apple keyboard with the fingerprint for passwords and stuff like that. Cause I don't want to scan my face or do anything. I want to boom, just get in and out of it. Right.
Yeah.
So buying two devices is more expensive,
I
in
guess.
general.
Not
It,
really.
yeah, I don't know. The MacBook
I
Air is
mean,
like,
you can get the baseline Air, and
that's
you can
true.
get a pretty souped up M3 for the price of a
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah. And to me, half the reason that we bought the Mac Mini was like the size of it, the cuteness of it that's there, and
Mhm,
actually sitting and docking a desktop there. I'll also say this: as someone that has a docked laptop right now sitting here and recording this
mhm,
podcast on, yeah, I hate hubs and all these other things that are like I have one port on my Surface Book 4 here, right? Like that's all I get, and I have this dock, I have these things. It's kind of a thing. The other thing I will say, which is if I have a laptop, and this is a mental thing for me, I don't know what it is, but it's a mental thing for me, is I can't shut the lid and like dock it and
mhm,
put it under something. Like there's a beautiful screen sitting here, which means it's taking up so much space. You know what I mean? Where I feel
yeah,
like it gets in the way, like there. So, but you can of course create that there. But I will say this: if you're like, oh, just use it as a second screen, that sucks. Like it sucks because you want your screens to be like the same size. Like it just in general, like from dual, like every the resolutions are different, the scaling is different. You're just like, oh, why can't I just have two of the same exact monitors or one really big monitor? So I think like that's the other part too, is like there's these other quirks in there that I think really get you. But it's a good article, it's worth reading and worth thinking about.
mhm.
But I do disagree as well. So
And I think we all kinda just fall into what makes us comfortable,
yeah,
we've all tried different setups. This is what we've found that works for us. Keep playing around.
yeah,
Obviously, spend as little money as you can.
yeah. Well, talking about that, one thing that's very fascinating is there's one thing I would like for Christmas, Frank. And it
Oh,
is and does have to
let
do
me
with my Mac
hang on.
Mini and
Let me
sort
write
of
it
to
down.
this person's. into this person specific article, which is if they were a developer, imagine you could be on one machine, two machine, or n number of machines,
What? I'm
right?
not buying you n number of machines
Okay.
for
No, no,
Christmas.
no, no. Let's say you have n number of machines, which as you have more machines, you have to update and do more things. But imagine, Frank, if you just had a device, a machine in the cloud that you could get
Oh,
access to. We've talked about it before, but now I've actually really used it, which is the Microsoft Dev Box.
yeah.
And I've talked for a long time about it. Now, this is like, you just can't get it. You just can't like go get it as a single individual user. And this is why I won it for Christmas, company that I work for. I am in love with the
Ah,
dev box. Oh my God. I just spun
wait,
up like 4 different dev boxes. Now they're super optimized VMs for developers that your IT department, your project, your team can configure. So for example, my dev box at work, when I say give me a new dev box, just doesn't give me Windows, it's not just a VM. It gives me everything I could ever want for my software development lifecycle. It has all the Visual Studios. It has all of Git. It has all of the tooling. It has all the
right.
VS Code. Everything's set up for me. I'm signed in. It's authenticated with my Entra ID, which means like it has all my stuff. It has OneDrive installed. It has all my files there for me. Everything is like boom there. I can access it from the Windows application on any device, including my phone or my tablet. I can get into it. It's RDP, right? So it's a super lightweight protocol. You're just RDPing into this thing,
Right.
and everything works, including nested virtualization, which we talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
with the M series. That you can't do that in VMware Pro, for example. And you can, and the whole thing scales, and it can do whatever you want. It can be huge there. And here's the cool part: is imagine, Frank, you have satellite internet. You have magical satellites floating around giving you internet.
How? Okay.
How? But imagine if you could update Visual Studio in like seconds and install new versions of .NET in seconds because you're using the internet in the cloud, not on your machine, right? So here's the cool part about it that I love is like I will be, for example, like at a hotel or something like that, which has
Mhm.
super slow internet. I RDP into a dev box and get all the latest bits, all this stuff like near instantaneous because I'm using like
Right.
100 gigabit fiber or whatever. You know what I mean? And like I can scale up and like super powerful, right? Like, for example, Microsoft just announced at the Ignite the Tour this little tiny itty bitty box is like this big, which is called, I think it's like the Surface Link. It's like this big. And all it does, it just runs like some shim OS that like basically lets you go into Windows or DevBox or whatever,
Yeah.
or any
Yeah.
VM
Yeah.
and do this stuff, right? And then, but imagine you bought the $600 Mac Mini, you just boom, dev box, bam, you have this huge thing, right? But you can still bounce back, right? And it's not taxing your machine because all the processing power is in the cloud. Anyways, it's
Love it.
unbelievably so. I've been using them not nonstop. So, like for example, I'll create a dev box, and you could create one like and just shove .NET 10 on there, for example, like the early previews. You can totally mess up the machine and then just delete it and start over, right? Anyways, they're so awesome.
Okay, I think you should use Docker for that last one. But okay, for the more
True.
stable environment, this sounds like it's useful for the stable environments, just what we're getting into traveling around and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I love that glowing review. You really make me want to try it out. I am curious about pricing, of course. You have to wonder
Yeah.
about those kinds of things. But the feature set sounds wonderful. And this is kind of the way of the future. I always push back against it, like with the game streaming. Those didn't quite take off, but someone will try again, and they'll happen eventually. This feels like it's along those lines of, yeah, why maintain a machine? Like, really ask yourself why,
Yeah.
and do the budget. How much does a machine cost? How much does one of these virtual machines cost? And it's fun because I don't know, even as a kid, I had this little epiphany of like, you would go to a web host and they give you a little virtual machine. I'm like, wait a minute. At the click of a button, you can just make me a new computer. So I think we've all been enchanted with this technology since the beginning. So it's nice to see it just come to like a good UI. I think that's
Yeah.
what it really comes down to. Like, give me pre-configured machines with a decent UI, and RDP is battle tested, so that thing's gonna be fine.
Yeah. And they're super nice because they'll auto hibernate the device for you
Yeah.
automatically to save costs and all this other stuff. It's really, really nice. And like I'll say this about it is that imagine you're doing tons of like intensive work. You need to run tests. You need to do a bunch of stuff that's like taxing to the machine. If you're just doing it on your local machine, you can't really do anything else, right? You're like building your app. You're like, cool, I'm
Oh,
building
yeah.
my app. I guess I'll just wait till this is done. If you have a dev box, you could have multiple dev boxes open and running, and you could be like, okay, finish this thing. That's going to take 10 minutes, 20 minutes to run your LLM model or whatever thing. Or
Yeah,
I'm just going to
right.
jump over to this dev box, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's super cool. If you are at a company, give it a look. Dev box, a hands-on experience. I've been loving it.
Wait, so just clarify one thing real quick. In the beginning, you said you want one for Christmas, but then you just said you've been using one. Uh, what is the want and what is the how did you get?
I'm using them at work.
You want one for James at home.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
I would love that any of my, like right now for my Mac Mini, right? What I really want is to not have to install VMware
Fair.
Pro, right? And I just want
It's the
to,
same
boom,
difference,
go.
right? Because it's a window, it's an OS and a window. Might as well, whatever, if you have a good internet connection, especially.
Exactly. Yeah. And the cool part is, yeah, RDP is like the bits are so small, right? To send over because RDP is like an amazing protocol.
Pro tip, turn off your background wallpaper.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. Yeah. Okay, cool. One thing I want to talk about really quick because we were talking about your earbuds, EAR buds that are AirBuds, but they're earbuds, but are also AirBuds. Okay.
They go in your
So
ear.
they go in your ear. Now I have like tiny little buds that are here. I also have like, more closed ear Sonys that I
Mhm.
wear on almost every single thing that I do in life. But I've been hearing these things about air open air headphones or earbuds. I saw this first on MKBHD. He was reviewing. He uses a Sennheiser. It's
Oh boy.
for audio files apparently. Open back dynamic headphone. Yep. And there's
Sennheiser.
these other ones. There's Sony
Dynamic.
Link Buds, which are little buds that are open ring design for ambient noise. Now, and then there's Bose ones. I also saw Becca who was talking about the Nothing Ear open ear headphones. These ones actually wrap around the back of your just different style. But the whole concept is this. And we're talking about it because you might be thinking about getting new AirPods, earbud AirPods. So
You got this.
normally headphones are all about keeping noise out, right? They either do that
Mm,
keeping the world out.
the original headphones were for putting music into your
Yeah.
brain.
So, no,
Or
no, no.
music
You
in.
you you put the music in, but keep the world noise out, right?
Ideally,
And then
yes.
also, you also want it so your music does not leak out. So it's like your music, what's coming out of the buds stays in your ears, doesn't leak out, and the world around you doesn't leak in, right? That's the goal. Now, over time, there have been evolvements where like things are like completely closed off, surrounding, and then there's like active noise cancellation that's there. Now, more recently, though, what's fascinating is that some headphones, like the AirPods, have like new modes that are like these ambient modes, right? And there's even air or hearing aid modes, right, and stuff like that in these
Yeah.
new ones that basically use microphones. They use microphones to pipe ambient sound together into it. Now, why is this beneficial? Well, if you're in an office, for example, if people are coming up and talking behind you, you could actually hear this ambient noise and not get jump scared like me in general. Now, the fascinating part is that I had never heard of these things at all up until like last week when I watched a video from Becca and MKBHD about how they love and rave about
Okay.
these open back and open air earbuds and headphones about it. And I'm like, am I just missing out on this world of
Yeah.
stuff? Because, yeah, when I'm jamming to music, I can't hear anything at all. And that's what I've lived for like over a decade. So I want to know, am I doing it wrong? Does this sound interesting to you, Frank? Like, what's your thoughts? Have you known about this forever? What's the sitch?
I don't know. When you first pitched this to me, I was very confused because we have a few headphones that don't go in your ear, and in fact, in general, I really don't like headphones. I'm wearing the AirPods Pro right now, but I don't love them because they go in your ear.
Yeah.
I prefer things that go around your ear and aren't jamming in there. But my headphones died, so here we are. So the open air, I want to believe that these are actually just fine. I used to have the Bose sunglasses that had like the little speaker right next to your
Mm,
ear. And the sound quality is not perfect because it's not going to beat things jammed directly into your ear. But at the same time, they were so comfortable because I didn't have anything over my ears, pinching my ears. You could lay down with them even, like, if you want to rest your head on the side. I think of a lot of those kind of ergonomic things when I think of my headphones. Like, can I just fall asleep at that spot on the floor right now instantaneously and lay down and be comfortable? That's important to my headphone usage. So, to answer your question, no, I have no idea. And they certainly seem to come in a lot of form factors. And listeners, if you're as confused as I, just imagine headphones, but they remove the backing. So it's literally just the speaker part and then whatever framing they need to be able to put that speaker part roughly where your ear hole is. Other designs look like, honestly, just like a hearing aid. And I made the comment to you that in the end, I think we're all just going to be wearing hearing aids because, like, that's the form factor that fits in the ear the best. And especially if you get them molded to your own ears and things like that, they're going to be the most comfortable and the most performant. But for now, I'm open to some open air headphones. I'm hoping you'll buy them and try them, and then tell me if they're any good.
Yeah, I am. It's a great question. So for earbuds, so little things that go. So traditionally, historically, I've been about big headphones
Mm-hmm.
that have deep bass,
Yeah.
and I've had Nokia ones. I've had lots of Beats by Dre's. I have had a flurry of different headphones. I was a headphone junkie, if you will.
Ooh, yeah.
Um, I hate in
How you
ear.
doing now? Do you still
Uh,
buy them?
I own none of those things anymore. So I don't know. Something happened with me where I just kind of felt in my travel, because they were travel headphones, right? And walking around the city headphones and things like that. And I just kind of fell out of like with the size of them walking around and also like having to put them in my bag and as one more thing to carry. So
Yeah.
I did move to here, like where I'm at currently. There's like little tiny buds or whatever. And I do have little tiny, like cheap Philips in ear earbuds that don't have any noise cancellation or anything, but they're like $15. And I decided to go down this route of just really cheap earbuds because I continuously keep losing them. Like, and I'm like, well, $10. I find them
And
eventually,
there,
but so I have, yeah.
I have a
Um,
drawer of them.
yeah, so I do seem to lose them. Now I am really interested in the nothing ones, the ear open ones, because they look pretty cool. They kind of wrap around the back of your head, which is nice, and the case is extremely thin, which is really cool. And they do have Find My in on them too, which is really really nice. So they seem cool. Again, $150. I have a hard time
Yeah.
justifying like is that going to be like such a life upgrade compared to my little $15 ones? Like I don't know, probably not. That's my problem. Whereas like I am invested in my Sony Studio headphones, which I've had for like ever. I think they're only like $80. They're closed ears, and that's what I usually wear when I record
Mhm.
podcasts because I can self monitor and like keep it in and hear myself in my head, and I really like those. So I've kind of fallen out of the world, and I've gotten some like different promotional headphones, and I'm just like I just don't wear them. There's not my jam.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and again, once you find something you like, you just kind of want to stick with it. It's like, why
Yeah,
try other things? Not speaking for myself in this case, I just noticed that I feel like the open air, but like the that wrap around the back of your head, those seem to be the most popular right
yeah,
now. Everyone seems to dig those because, yeah, the weight's not on your ear. The weight can go onto your head or onto your neck, and so I think I think that form factor might win in the end. But as someone, I don't think I was ever fully a junkie into the audio world, but I refused to be because I knew what a deep rabbit hole it was. But I'm always
yeah.
interested in better sound quality, right? So I
That's
don't know.
true. Uh,
$150 though, that's a tough gamble to try.
yeah, one thing I've been into recently, I think John Galloway was and others have done this, which is uh, no headphones or earbuds. Like just listen to music out of
Yeah,
like your computer or speakers on
yeah,
your desk, like we used to do back in the day. And like
it's great.
and like microphones are now really good about like keeping things out and all these other modes and things like that. Or only put in headphones like when you're on calls or whatnot. But like you could
Mhm.
actually just like listen to music and do things at your desk like without that. So that's another option is you don't need because my problem is actually keeping them in my ears all day, right?
Right. Well, and then again, I don't know if I should be doing this or not, but like I use my AirPods when I'm using power tools. That's where the
Yeah.
transparency mode is actually really good for me because I can still talk to people, but when I turn on the power tool, it tries to noise cancel out as much of that as it can.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still waiting for people to write in and tell me, is that actually safe or not? But it feels safe. I'll say that much. It feels
Yeah,
safe.
it feels safe. All right, last topic here. I saw a headline. I didn't actually read the article, but it was one of those clickbaity articles because it said the year of GPT is over. Frank,
Oh.
it's done. We're done with GPTs in general.
Ah.
Um, and so, if the year or years of GPT are
Mm.
over, what's next? And is that true? What are your thoughts? You're the
Ooh.
AI expert.
That is some clickbait, but I think I know where they're going without reading the article. This is fun. We haven't read the article. Let's suppose what they said. Um, I think GPT, OpenAI, has been benefiting by the first mover. What do you call that? Advantage. You know, they were first to market with a decent network, and they've got all the fame. They might even be the Google. You know, like these things might be called Chat GPTs. At least they're called chat things. They got that part in. So they really kind of defined the space, but that was before they had competition. Now they have tons of competition. So I think I actually do agree. It's hard to stay in the number one position, but they've guaranteed themselves the number one, two, three position for the next 10 years, probably. So I wouldn't worry. Don't worry about OpenAI, people. They're going to be fine. What I'm excited about is that there is competition, that there is at least someone putting up a fight against OpenAI. We have Google with its fantastic Gemini. We have one of my favorites, Claude. I love Claude. Um, and there's so many else out there, especially Llama version 3, a proper open source LLM. You know, you can download this puppy and run it right on your computer, royalty free. You know, you don't have to pay a dime. It's going to cost a bit to download the thing. It's huge, but that's about it. And that's a big, beautiful. Basically, people are calling it like a GPT-4 level service. So not as good as 4.0, not as good as the newly announced O1, but you know, that's the competition. What was state of the art GPT-4 is now a 70 gigabyte download. Anyone can go to. That's the difference between today and yesterday.
Yeah, it's on the Atlantic. That's where it was. I'm trying to scroll through because I think there's two ways of interpreting it, right? Which is when we think of GPT, we think of OpenAI and ChatGPT and GPT-4 and GPT-4o and all these other things. But, GPT is just a general term, right? For
Eh.
generative something transformers, pre-trained
That-
transformers.
I thought it was generic, but it could be generative.
Generative.
General purpose transformer, I think, is another way people
Yeah.
say it. That part feels the GPT is not going to survive into the future. I don't think so. Especially because OpenAI is using it as the branding for one of their features. You can create GPTs, so that's become a feature. So therefore, it cannot, by the definition of marketing, become the Kleenex of the future.
Yeah. I think that the fascinating thing or the trend that I'm seeing with all the different things that you just uh, mentioned, and also for the fact that if you were to look at, let's say, GitHub Copilot, and in their most recent release, right, you can select the different
Right?
model that you would like. And it is because these models are being trained more for very specific purposes. So less
Yes.
general, more specific models. We've talked about this, right? And there's these small models, these SLMs, for example, that are doing these specific things. And I do feel as though if you're able to start to do some of these little activities with AI that can run on little tiny devices or can run more locally, you see a lot more of these SLMs or, for example, just really purpose built models. So the GPT, yes, that we saw that was I can do anything, right? Actually, I feel as though the superpower is if you could have something that you're communicating with, but actually what it's doing is communicating with a bunch of different models that is figuring out the
Oh,
best
yeah.
purpose for it, right? At the end of the day. Like if I ask ChatGPT to go generate code, like why would it just do it with GPT 4.0 instead of like some code model? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like really
Yeah.
specific with it. Because that's probably like, to me, that's where I think things are going, where like it'll just be ubiquitous, right? Like you're doing a bunch of stuff, but a bunch of different things. Like someone's going to orchestrate. It's the Kubernetes of LLMs, right? They'll orchestrate
Yeah.
figuring out how to do something. That's kind of what I think they're maybe talking about. Again, I started scrolling through the article and it was way too long. I'm never going to read it, but I think
It's
I
just a
think
kicking off point.
yeah,
I agree with you, but in a slightly different way. In that, in the future, these LLMs are going to be like the assembly language, and we're going to still need
ah,
programmers and prompt engineers on top,
yeah,
putting them all together, getting them to cooperate using a specialized network here, a specialized network there. I don't want to go personally, just looking out into the future. I don't want to go too far down the specialization path. Uh, we gained a lot of power by these being general purpose.
true.
The fact that it knows just as much about car mechanics as it does the biology of the grasshopper, that's powerful because it can compare and contrast those two things. It can play in that world of higher level concepts. So the reason we had the big AI revolution of whatever 2022, 2021, whatever that happened, is because we got these general purpose ones. Now it's funny that once we got the general purpose ones, then we want to fine tune them into more specific tasks, and that's completely valid. But you were bringing up small language models, and I want to make it clear to people we had small language models for 10 years before any of these powerful ones came out. And I'll tell you what, the small language models are terrible compared to these new ones. There's a reason we're on this hockey stick curve right now. So the power of the small language models isn't let's train up a small neural network. It's let's take a big, powerful general purpose network and
Mm,
dumb it down so it fits into a small model and do that very carefully and specialize it to certain conditions. But we don't ever want to lose the power that we gained by these being general purpose. It's that cross. That's intelligence, baby. Knowing a lot about
that's
many
true.
subjects. Yeah.
It's true. It's why you can ask GitHub Copilot about the code and about the purpose and about this stuff, and it can actually pull, not just give you code recommendations, but understands the context and can have
Right.
conversations back and forth for it, which it can understand the context that you're giving at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes forward. I do believe that like the interface hopefully will change. Like
Oh,
I know
please, please.
yeah, I
Yes,
do.
it has
I
to.
can see it. Like Microsoft had that demo where they're like playing Minecraft, just like talking to it, and you're doing this stuff like that. And I can
Yeah.
see that even with like GitHub Copilot now has like a voice edition for
Mhm.
Visual Studio. I think it's like still in chat, but you have to kind of like click a button and do a thing. But you can kind of continue having conversation with it. So
Neat.
that would be kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You get into that funny thing where now we had solved voice dictation when you're just talking to the computer and it's recording what you say. But I just did it. When I'm talking to an AI, I stammer and I'm like, but ugh,
Yeah.
but what if, geez, and it gets annoying, and I have to do a lot of those. We call them holding words in English. You're holding the conversation. I'm making nonsense sounds. I'm saying, okay,
Yeah.
and those are just to hold the conversation in a normal human conversation. But these AIs don't know that. They stop the dictation and then they're like, I don't understand what you said. And I'm like, I was thinking, I'm a slow thinker. So I think there's still a lot of human interface stuff to work out there because the
Yeah.
real power of these AIs is when they're cooperating with us. And I think we really have to refine that human interaction layer. Oh, this is fun. Far out in the future of problems to solve.
We can look back when we're on episode 640 and then see where we go. But if you want to follow along our journey and the future of AI, subscribe to the podcast, emergeconflict.fm, on your favorite podcast application that you're listening to it on right now. Hit the subscribe or follow button over on that podcast app. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe as well so you stay up to date every time we put out a new episode every Monday at midnight Pacific. So you wake up Monday morning, boom, it's on there unless I schedule it incorrect, which has only happened twice, I think, in 440 episodes, which is pretty good.
Nice record.
Yeah, not bad. Well, I'm going to go edit this podcast, and it's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.